In 1985, a black bear found and ate 76 pounds of cocaine dropped by a smuggler's plane into the forest. There was probably about a 5-minute window before he died where he was the most dangerous apex predator on any continent ever. Well, with the Venthyr Guardian Druid, for 20 seconds, every 3 minutes, you get to play that bear. Hey there everyone, Mazarok here, and today I am going to be going over an alternative for the Guardian Druid that isn't Night Fae. I'm sure you've seen this all over, plastered all over the place. Oh, I'm a Guardian Druid, what's my best covenant? Night Fae, Night Fae, Night Fae, Night Fae, Night Fae! And yeah, you know what? There is an alternative if you want to play something different. Kyrion's really good, but we're going to be focusing on Venthyr and why I love it so much for Mythic Plus. I understand it's not the greatest in rating. I really do. But I'm mainly focusing this Druid on M+, where it is an incredible amounts of fun. Things line up very nicely. So we're going to be going over kind of the builds, talents, what you need to know, and the ins and outs. It's really not a complicated build. As a 180 Druid, I've already tanked a +8. So, I mean, it's really not complicated. Druids are nice and... I can't say nice and simple. They're very complex to master, but getting their base rotation down is one of the easier ones for tanks. So if you are starting out as a new tank and you have chosen Guardian Druid as your first, do know that you have picked up an easy class to play and understand, but a difficult class to master. It's one of those, it's got a very high ceiling to know when to soothe, when to remove your poisons and things like that, along with all of the other utility that you have that can really make or break a run for you depending on how you utilize it. So, moving forward, we're going to go through the talents, conduits, and what you need to know to be the best apex predator out there within a small window. But utilizing your run and pulling according to your Ravenous Frenzy is a different playstyle and is tons and tons of fun. So we're going to go through and I'll kind of show you why I love this build so much. So before we get into talents and conduits, first we need to know what makes Venthyr so special for Guardian Druid in Mythic Plus. Number one, that is the Venthyr Covenant ability for the Druid's Ravenous Frenzy. For 20 seconds, Druid spells you cast increase your damage and healing by 2% and haste by 1%, stacking. If you spend 2 seconds idle, the frenzy overcomes you, consuming 1% of your health per stack and stunning you for 1 second ending. Now, one thing do note with this, when it says idle, it means using abilities. You can absolutely sit still and use the Draven Soulbind where you gain the extra health and healing as long as you're continuously casting. This is on a 3-minute cooldown. This also lines up perfectly with the Guardian Druid's Berserk, which you want to be talented into Incarnation, and we're going to go into the talent tree a little bit later, very basic. But you want to use these two in tandem. What this does is it puts Thrash on the GCD, and increases that with haste. So a haste trinket like the overcharged anima battery is really good here. Lots and lots of fun, as well as other means of stacking up your haste, which we're going to get into a little bit later. But this here makes you a damage machine. With certain packs in like M0s, as a Guardian Druid, I was hitting 10k damage. It's wild. But what makes this even a little bit more special is, of course, the legendary that you should be using, which is the Memory of Ursoc. So in bear form, Thrash has a 15% chance to trigger an additional Thrash, and Thrash grants you an Absorb Shield of 75% of the damage it deals. Now, I do have, I've done the math, and, well, someone else has done the math, and I've downloaded that weak aura. Max shield is just under 20k health, which constantly refreshes with each tick, with each Thrash, I can't say each tick, but each Thrash that you use, which you're using on GCD. So literally for 20 seconds, it's just Thrash and Iron Fur, which is off the GCD. So you can literally just do those per pack. And quite literally just mount up a lot of damage, and you're basically unkillable. You cannot, like, it's very tough to take damage unless you're taking big hits from big something. But on top of that, you can use your defensives and your frenzied regen. When I'm working with my healers on doing these dungeons, if I say that I've got Ravenous Frenzy up, they can literally just focus on DPS. They don't need to heal me, because as I'm just endlessly thrashing, I don't get hit. The shield, the absorb shield, is just constantly refreshing, taking all of the damage for me as I'm just thrashing endlessly. And I usually get anywhere from 22 to 27 stacks of the Ravenous Frenzy, so that increases haste by 27%. That increases healing by almost, like, you know, between 40 and 50%, and damage by 40-50%. It gets to be really nutty and a lot of fun, so you can plan big pulls around this ability, because it's not just your healer having to worry about you, because your healer doesn't have to worry about you. For 20 seconds, you're the most dangerous apex predator on that continent. So it's really a lot of fun, and especially for Mythic Plus, it shines so nicely. So that's really the basics of the build, and then we're going to get into things now that we can kind of work towards to make that a little bit better. Alright, let's talk talents. On your 15 row, you do have Brambles, which is your passive set it and forget it, but you do also have Bristling Fur. If you find that you are lacking rage generation, Bristling Fur might be the right pick for you. Depending on the dungeon, I have picked this and it's turned out well, but most of the time I just stick with Brambles, and it's perfectly fine for all content. The 25 row, Wild Charge, I main a warrior tank, so not having charge feels really bad for me. So I did take Wild Charge just because to have a charge. I love it so much. But Renewal is also a very, very good option if you want to play more defensively and you need bigger heals. For your Affinity, this is really based along your choice. Which one do you want best? I personally find Restoration Affinity to be the best option for Guardian Druid, although Cat Weaving has always been a thing with Feral Affinity, and if you were a Night Fae, balance Affinity with Convoke the Spirits at a distance when you can get that in, definitely a nice option. But since we are Venthyr in this build, I prefer Restoration Affinity. Lastly, well, not lastly at all, 35 row, halfway point. Mighty Bash is my main option. It's what I do prefer. Heart of the Wild I find is better if you're a DPS druid going into this, and you can, you know, Restoration Affinity and pump out big heals. But I can't do that as a Guardian Druid, because the moment I start pumping out big heals, I'll get wrecked. Mass Entanglement also absolutely does have its place in different dungeons, but Mighty Bash is my general go-to. It's just nice. Now this right here, this is really what makes that build, is the Incarnation Guardian of Ursoc. Is an improved bear form that grants the benefits of Berserk, causes Mangle to hit up to 3 targets, and increases your maximum health by 30%. Lasts 30 seconds, and you may freely shapeshift in and out of this improved bear form for its duration. So this lines up perfectly with Ravenous Frenzy, as we discussed earlier, and is and should be an absolute staple in what you're doing for this build. 45 row, Survival of the Fittest, great option. Earth Warden, great option. Pick which one you want. Earth Warden is a little bit more, again, passive, set it and forget it. If you're not using your bark skin or your survival instincts appropriately, and what I mean by appropriately is knowing when the damage is coming and preventing that damage by using it. If you're constantly using it reactively, like, oh, I just took a big hit, let's use survival instincts. Well, guess what? The damage already happened. It's not going to change. So you need to be proactive and knowing when that damage is going to be incoming and preventing it using that. So if you are very, very good at doing that, Survival of the Fittest is probably going to be your best play. If you are very reactive, Earth Warden's probably your best play there. And when it comes to dungeons, Rend and Tear is pretty much the best way to go. Pulverize is much better in a single target scenario, so raiding, Pulverize would be good, but this is an M+ build, Rend and Tear, so each stack of Thrash reduces the target's damage to you by 2% and increases your damage to them by 2%, so Within 3 GCDs on Ravenous Frenzy Incarn, it's immediately 6%. And it stays there. It's really, really nice. And on top of that, it gets a lot of use outside of your Ravenous Frenzy Incarn. Now, when we go to talents and trees, I prefer General Draven. I really, really like General Draven's Soulbind for tanking. So, Service and Stone, obvious. Layered Main, I really like this. Iron Fur has a 10% chance to apply 2 stacks. It's nice, good. You're constantly using Iron Fur. You're going to get a constant uptick on this. Now, I just leveled this character up to 60 like 3 days ago. So, I don't have all of the things upgraded yet or anything like that. I know. But for your first Potency Conduit, you are going to want to use Endless Thirst. So, Ravenous Frenzy increases your critical strike chance by X percentage per stack. This really comes into play when it comes into the damage. Of course, these two here, so it's basically your user's choice, does not matter in the middle. For your second Endurance, I prefer the Innate Resolves for the Frenzied Regen, increased healing. You're going to get a lot of use out of this. I mean, optimally in higher dungeons, you're probably going to use Frenzied Regen 4 times a minute, so you're going to get a lot of use out of this. And then lastly, this is the big Potency Conduit that you want to make sure that you got equipped, is Unchecked Aggression. You gain approximately 20% haste during Berserk in bear form. Adding 20% haste onto Ravenous Frenzy, baseline, because you're going to end up with almost 50% haste by the time your Ravenous Frenzy is done. Yeah, that's more than a bloodlust. So you can really do this every 3 minutes. It's wild. And then on top of that, hold your ground. This is something that takes some work around because you want to move a lot. You're thinking you want to move a lot. But at the same time, when you're in this Berserk form, it's best to stay still. So after 4 seconds, it grants you 10% increased stamina and 4% increased healing done. So by the end of your Ravenous Frenzy, you're gaining just a stupid amount of healing received. So your healer does not have to heal you that much. Number one, because of Memory of Ursoc's Absorb Shield, but you're also gaining so much healing, it's nuts, that if you get to 75%, you can just Frenzied Regen and you're back up to 100 in no time at all. Where it gets dangerous is once Ravenous Frenzy falls off. Once that buff is done, you need to make sure that that pack is dying quickly because your big defense is only 10 seconds away while you can freely cast the Incarnation Thrash on GCD, but it starts to, you feel the haste die down and everything else like that. So that is the Soulbind's talents, conduits that you need to make this build work. It is a ton of fun in Mythic Plus. Guardian Druids are super, super survivable all of the time. It does not matter which covenant you pick. They're a fun class to play. Bear is great right now with tons of utility all around. One of the reasons why I went with Venthyr, I was just tired of having Night Fae characters, just too many of them, and I wanted something different. And I really liked Door of Shadows for kiting, for getting out, so that way you have 2 options for kiting with Ursol's Vortex, and Door of Shadows. So you have a lot of methods to get away that you might not have every other time, and it works really, really well. I know Soul Shape for Night Fae, super good option. Like I said, I just didn't want to play another Night Fae character. There's just too many Night Fae Bis covenants, you know what I mean? So I wanted something different. And I picked Venthyr because it is just an incredible amount of fun. So if you want to play a Guardian Druid that isn't Night Fae, try Venthyr. Line that up with Incarn and just go to town. I have pulled entire rooms in dungeons with this build and literally don't take a split, any damage. I warn the healer, I warn the DPS, big cooldowns, let's go. And you just see everybody go ham on these packs. And it works out so well, but it needs to be worked in with your group a little bit. You can't just, I've tried it with pugs, it doesn't work out that great because a lot of times you don't know what they're capable of. You got to make sure that their DPS is high enough to be able to, down that pack in that 20 seconds, 20, 30 seconds. Because if they don't, you're you might still have too many things up by the time your Ravenous Frenzy and Incarn are done, and you're not as survivable as you'd like because you pulled too much on, you know, bolstering weeks or this or that. So be careful there. Play with your strengths, play with your party member strengths and things like that. If they have massive amounts of AoE with like a Fire Mage, a Fury Warrior, a Monk, an Unholy DK, an Elemental Shaman, whatever, and they are blasting AoE out the a-hole, this would be a good tank to join them with, because your healer could even start joining them too for damage, and you wouldn't have to worry about anything. So, thank you very much for joining the video. I stream on Twitch every... right now I think it's Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday. I'm still deciding on that schedule as things have kind of changed around in life, and I need to adapt and change with. So come on by, check that out. If you have any questions on this build, or what build would you like to see next? I'm kind of deciding whether I want to level a Paladin tank or a Monk tank. Both are, one's at 50, one's at 30, level 38, so I think it's like 58 and 38. I don't know which one I'm going with yet. One of them I'm finding kind of boring to level up, but I will admit, Guardian Druid I found very boring to level up as well. Until I got my Legendary, and I got like all the things that I kind of needed set up, and now it's one of the more fun tanks that I've played in a very, very long time. It is incredibly fun. So keep that in mind when you're leveling up a tank. They might change drastically once they get their Legendary, once they get their powers, once they kind of get a little bit of gear and things like that. Warrior is another fantastic option of that. Until you get the Reprisal Legendary, Warrior doesn't feel that great in Mythics or in Dungeons. But then you get Reprisal and the game is totally changed. So there is that. So would you guys like to see a Monk? Would you guys like to see a Paladin being leveled up next and kind of maybe come up with a weird build or something of the sort? I'm not sure yet. I don't even know what's viable for Paladin. We can go from there. But I hope you guys are enjoying Shadowlands as much as I am. I hope you guys are taking a chance at tanking and going with that. Have yourselves a good day, and thank you very much.